and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I'd like to start by welcoming Councilwoman Alexander back after too long an absence, so it's good to have you back. And she's been officially sworn in, so we're good to go. I have one proclamation I'm going to read tonight, and I should read it in a very calm voice because it's a Quest for Calm Day. Whereas children and their adults need creative ways to overcome the stress and distractions of a fast-paced world and find their way to calm, and whereas playfulness and mindfulness are powerful tools to help families embark on a quest for calm, whereas Z Puppets Rosenschnaz discovered a seaworthy crew among the families of Winona by partnering with the Winona YMCA, Winona Park and Rec, Winona Library, Infinity Yoga Studio, and Bluff Country Co-op by providing their strengths to the quest for calm through connections to youth, wellness, and the arts. And whereas Z Puppets has led local youth and families on their own quest for calm, culminating in a public performance of Monkey Mind Pirates, the world's only puppet rock yoga adventure on February 5th, 2015. Now, therefore, I, Mark Peterson, Mayor of the City of Winona, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim Thursday, February 5th, 2015 is the first annual Quest for Calm Day. And I don't know if there was somebody who was going to be in the audience to get this. Okay. If you want, I'll give it to you. Introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Patrick Menton with the Winona Family YMCA. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for declaring February 5th the Quest for Calm Day. The Winona Family YMCA is pleased to join Z Puppets, Infinity Yoga, Winona Public Library, Winona Parks and Recreation, Page Theater at St. Mary's University, Bluff Country Co-op, and families in the city of Winona to proclaim the importance of calm for our families. In today's busy world, finding our way to calm can fall off of our to-do list. However, when we teach young people how to navigate stormy seas of stress and distraction, calm can become a lifelong habit that contributes to the health and well-being of all. So please take a moment, breathe deep, imagine your island of calm, and join the Quest for Calm on February 5th, and turn your family's ahs into ohms. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. City Manager?
No comments tonight.
Okay, roll call.
Mayor Peterson.
Here?
Councilman Thurley.
Here.
Craig.
Here.
Alexander. Here. Iden.
Here.
Borzakowski.
Here.
Double.
Here.
And on the public hearings this evening, item 2.1 is a public hearing for city equipment certificates known as 501c3 bonds.
Okay, I'll declare the public hearing open. Any discussion? I know there's no action required by the council. Ask if anybody wants to speak. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak? One more time, anybody wish to speak? Hearing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and this issue will be brought up at a future council meeting, at the next council meeting.
And on to the next public hearing, item 2.2 is a Small Cities Development Program application for the Winona East End Neighborhood Rehabilitation Program.
I'll declare that public hearing open and ask Lucy McMartin, our Economic Development Director, to please come up.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. This is a Small Cities Development Program application. As you know, the City of Winona Community Development Office has a long history of applying for grants to help homeowners with deferred loans to fix up their homes. We've also done rental rehabilitation in the past and commercial rehabilitation. This particular grant application will be for just under $600,000. It includes predominantly owner-occupied housing rehabilitation, but it also does include some funding for rental rehabilitation. And we were advised by the state to include this rental rehabilitation project in our application. So it isn't necessarily something that we decided here at a local level, but they advised us to include it in our application. And that's Morningside Terrace, which is in great need of rehabilitation. I can answer any questions you may have.
Other questions for Lucy?
I just have a question about the deferred loans. Does that mean there's 0% interest?
That's
on-
correct. The
okay.
deferred loan is for 10 years and it's 0% interest.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I guess not. Thank you, Lucy. Anybody else wish to speak? Anybody else wish to speak? Last chance. Anybody else wish to speak? Hearing none, declare the public hearing closed.
Move to approve the attached resolution.
Second.
Motion by Jerry and seconded by Michelle. Any further discussion?
Yes. I used to work in these programs, and I know how very competitive they are, so kudos to Lucy and her staff. These are not easy packages to put together, and like I said, most cities get turned down, so excellent job.
I think Winona's done pretty well over the years with
Yes.
these. So. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we have a motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Item 2.3 is a public hearing regarding the floodplain ordinance amendment.
Okay. I'll declare that public hearing open and ask Mr. Moeller, our city planner, to come to the microphone.
As we noted in your agenda package, the Planning Commission on January 12th held a public hearing to consider a number of amendments to our floodplain ordinance. Following that hearing, they did recommend approval of the changes that were proposed. The last comprehensive update to this ordinance was made in 1992. Given that, we've been working closely with DNR and FEMA officials in updating the various provisions of the document. Purposes of doing so we've got a couple of purposes for that. One is to make sure that the ordinance is compliant with state law. The second is to ensure that to ensure continued participation in the federal flood insurance program, which is administered by FEMA. So that's why FEMA was part of this effort, just to make sure that changes we made were consistent with their program. So there were a couple of different agencies that we were working with in that effort. The ordinance before you contains a number of changes. If you had a chance to go through it, you can see that there's a fair amount of red lines. There are three basic changes we want to highlight. The first is that the proposal would serve to import a number of additional flood maps into our system. Currently, or over the years, we've annexed some lands which are not totally covered under our jurisdiction, under our current ordinance. So the intent here is to bring those maps under our jurisdiction. Currently, they're under the county jurisdiction directly. The ordinance would add a third floodplain district called the General Floodplain District. In part, that's needed because some of the maps that we're importing are old maps and don't have a breakdown of what floodways and flood fringe areas are. They're just a general floodplain district. So language pertaining to that district's been added to the proposed ordinance. Finally, the ordinance proposes a number of changes, language changes, again, which are designed to bring our ordinance in line with the state 3-district floodplain ordinance. In the short term, if this is adopted, nobody's going to feel any pain over this. Nobody will notice any difference at all. We have, through this process, learned that The DNR is working with FEMA in updating maps, floodplain maps throughout the state. And this is an effort that FEMA is encouraging everywhere right now, based upon past experience. And DNR has pretty much completed their work on the maps. That work is revolved around various hydrologic models showing increased rainfall events. And that information's been given to FEMA. Ultimately, what will happen is that FEMA will draft maps based upon that information. So if there are changes down the road, we may see those at that point in time. Areas that maybe aren't in a floodplain right now might be included in one at that point. We don't know at this point. But we do know that there will be a public process to review maps before they're actually adopted, and everybody will have a chance to see how it's going to impact them. The ordinance you have before you tonight has been approved by the DNR. We included in your agenda package a letter from them conditionally approving the ordinance. Since that letter was written, we have addressed both of the conditions that they had in that letter. They followed up with a separate email stating that they're fine with the ordinance the way it's presented tonight. Given that there isn't probably, as opposed to many ordinances you look at, there's not a lot of discretion in terms of modifying things. The idea here is consistency, and that's what the DNR has been pushing for. Our ordinance is going to be pretty much the same as any other floodplain ordinance in the state. However, if you feel a need to change something, we would probably, at this point, given that we have tentative approval on it already, we'd have to run that back through the DNR office and FEMA office. So, outside of that, the Planning Commission has also recommended approval of the proposal, and our recommendation to you tonight is to approve it.
Questions for Mark? Al?
Yeah, I've got a couple of them. Does this do anything at all to help? I know we've dealt with on council before, those areas that are still in the floodplain, that still have to be required to purchase flood insurance. Does that take any of that out of that requirement?
This process does not do that. It does not, this process does not change any of the maps that we have in place right now for the core area of the city or the maps that we're importing from the county. We're not changing.
Well, I noticed, I thought I read into there something about a procedural where the people who are concerned about it could go before the Board of Adjustment. Is that a process that you think is valuable for us to continue?
Well, we could, I know, and I'm aware of the issues that you're talking about, primarily in the 4th Ward, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That is a possibility. At this point, what I would suggest is waiting to see what draft maps FEMA's going to come out with. I think
Sure.
that's going to happen within the next, probably, I was told that they were going to be out by December of 2014, but it sounds like it might be mid-year now, 2015. And my hope is that when maps come out, they're accurate. The worst case scenario is these maps come out and they're flawed in some way, where it appears that a large area of the city all of a sudden is in a floodplain,
yeah.
and then you have a lot of concern. So
Right.
we're certainly encouraging them to take their time in developing those maps to make sure that everything's considered. But to answer your question, there will not be an immediate change to maps as part of this process.
And then a final question I have, does this change any of the actions the city needs to take regarding Prairie Island Campground as an area that's in a floodplain and that floods? I noticed there were some provisions that changed the sanitary sewer aspect of things too.
Not in this case, that area is non-conforming.
Okay.
It's grandfathered in. Obviously, this that area is in a floodplain.
Right.
We know that. And there could be an issue with expanding it at this point.
Sure.
But what's there is there, and that's the way it stands for now.
And no expansion has been talked about, but, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, Mark. Anybody else in the audience wish to speak? Anybody else wish to speak? Last time, anybody wish to speak? Hearing none, declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion?
I
Would move to recommend the attached ordinance be adopted.
Motion by Pam, seconded by Michelle. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Under the petitions, requests, and communications, item 3.1 is a request for the Winona Swim Club event, July 24th through 26th, and you have a draft license agreement for your review.
I move to approve the license agreement.
Second. Motion by Michelle, seconded by Paul. Now, this is an annual event. I mean, this happens every year. We close it for 3 days. Okay. Any questions or comments?
The only question I have is that it's, is the license agreement similar to the license agreements we've had from this group in the past? And I'm getting an affirmative staff nod, so, okay.
Same. Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Item 3.2 is a request to hold a walk at the West Lake by the Ridgeway Community School on Saturday, May 30th.
Move to approve that request.
Second?
Motion by George, seconded by Jerry. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Item 3.3 is a request to prohibit tobacco use in the parks by Live Well Winona, and I believe Janicki is here if you have questions.
Okay, state your name and address, please.
My name is Janica Sobek, and I'm the director of Live Well Winona. So I am coming this evening to encourage the city council to adopt a tobacco-free policy for our recreational areas, which would include parks and trails, and that ban would also include e-cigarettes. Our organization strives to promote health and wellness across the community. And with this policy, we have several goals. Reduce exposure to secondhand smoke, change the social norm around smoking, role model healthy behaviors for our youth, and reduce butt litter, which is the most commonly littered item in the United States. We want Winona to be able to keep up with the national push for healthy environments. There are currently 156 tobacco-free ordinances and policies for park systems in Minnesota. And through the statewide health improvement program, there were surveys conducted with the 200 largest Minnesota cities. There are 452 surveys, and they overwhelmingly recommend tobacco-free policies for parks and trails and recreational areas. Are there any questions about the policy proposal? Yes.
Pam?
I was happy to hear you mention that this pertains also to e-cigarettes. That was a question I had. Does it also pertain to tobacco that's chewed or otherwise sniffed or?
That's a great question. We would be encouraging this to be a tobacco in its entirety. Something like that might be a little more challenging to let people know about, but when you say tobacco, it wouldn't cover in case of liquor.
Just one more question. How has this worked in other cities? How does it work? I mean, are signs, a simple sign is enough or?
Yes, so the nice thing about this is they found that they're pretty much self-enforcing policies once the signage is in place, and it is essentially based on good signage, which we would have obviously with this. Compliance can be a concern area, but people then have the comfort or the confidence to tell others and let them know that the policy does exist. I myself have been told when I walk my dog around the wrong leg, people have the comfort to say, you're not allowed to do that here, please use the small leg. So it enables people to have that confidence to do that. But essentially signage is the best way to enforce that.
George, you had something.
Yes, thank you. Would this also include Lake Winona, the water?
I believe that would be considered a city recreational area.
like for ice fishermen out there right now, that would govern them. How would this actually be enforced?
Well, we are requesting a policy and not an ordinance because we do not intend for there to be punitive actions around this. Like I said, they found that most of them are self-enforcing. I do have a few statistics that I can share with you from those surveys that were conducted. They had 88% reporting no change in the park usage, 71% reporting less smoking in the parks, and then 58% reporting cleaner parks. And so these are just parks specifically, but I would assume that would be the case for other areas, other recreational areas as well. So they are pretty strong statistics that are showing these are good choices to make for the health of the community.
Now, I myself, I'm not a smoker, never have been, and I wish, we'd never heard of cigarettes before, and I couldn't tell you what an e-cigarette is. If you lit one up in here right now, I'd have no idea what the hell it is. But let's say if I'm out paddling my canoe, which I don't have, but if I did, and I could not technically light up a cigarette on Lake Winona.
You would not be allowed to do that. However, the enforcing piece is not something that the city would be allocating dollars to. Again, it would be based on the signage and up to the community members to enforce that.
Who would pay for all the signage?
There are some grants available that we have looked at. In fact, Huff Center, where our office is located, just recently passed a tobacco-free policy, and we had a grant that was able to cover signage, which will be put up shortly, but I don't know what the city's plan would be for that.
Chad wants to address that.
Mayor and council, my response to that would be that I'm not sure that we would necessarily put signs in every park. We would establish that through all of our policies, all our materials, so things like brochure, our website, and then existing signage that we have. So with the 27 parks and numerous facility locations, I'm not sure technical outdoor signage would be something that we would do. To Janica's point, I think what we would look at is looking at grants to do inside or interior signage. So things like if you had a sign that you wanted to place inside the East Rec, you could do that. Opposed to having an outdoor, creating another sign, or a signage system where we had numerous signs. To that though, you're going to see an agenda item coming forward. I think placing signage indicating that the parks are tobacco-free makes sense, where we have existing signage, or if we can develop locations where we have kiosks that indicate rules of the parks, indicate lengths around the path, for example, that indicating that we're tobacco-free would be the appropriate place to put them.
I've had, I don't know if other council people had calls or not today, but I've had several calls from people today that didn't support this resolution, and several people commented to me as well. And one person, and I'll pose this question to you, one person posed the question to me on whether or not we're trying to fix a problem that doesn't really exist. And I guess, what would be your response to that?
I would say that I have personally experienced it. I have not gone and done a butt collection at the playgrounds where our children play, but I have experienced it in my own recreation around the lake and in the trails. As a runner, I'm out there very frequently, and I do breathe in that tobacco, the secondhand smoke as I'm running around and people are smoking on the path. We also have tobacco-free event signage that has been funded through the statewide health improvement program. That signage is available to rent through Park Rec and Live Well Winona for free for any community event. And in some basic conversations, just initially with the coordinator of the farmers market, she was very excited about that signage because she sees that as an issue where they have their farmers market. So I could definitely come back with more information, but I can say that from my personal experience and from the farmers market, it doesn't appear to be an issue.
Okay, thank you. Jerry?
I'm not a smoker, never have been. And I'm much like George, I kind of wish that product was never created, however, it has been. And also, I'm a big supporter of your organization, but I'm against this. One of the questions that was posed to me, and I know you don't have an answer to this, or maybe you do, but there's another thing that's done in parks that also creates garbage, and it is very bad for you, and that's the consumption of alcohol. the next progression would be, why don't we all be healthy and we're gonna ban alcohol in all parks? Ice fishing, Prairie Island, softball games, et cetera. I don't agree with that, by the way. Media, do not agree with the camera. No, I don't agree with that. But I can see that to be the next progression if we're really looking at something that's very healthy, et cetera. And I know, I'm assuming that's not at all your next step here, but it very well could be. So again, I respect your organization, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm speaking against, I will be against this.
And if I may just point out one thing there, with the alcohol, it's a decision that individuals are making for themselves, whereas with tobacco, one of the concerns is exposure to secondhand smoke from bystanders. So I'll just add that as well.
Well, I understand that, but here's my concern. Family, a ball player goes down to play softball. They may be down there for 3 hours. That's a long ways away to where they can actually, if they shouldn't be smoking, but it's their choice. It's America, they chose, they're doing it. Where do they smoke? I mean, there's no easy place if you're there. Ice fishing, sitting around the campfire at Prairie Island, around the campfire, and you can't have a cigarette. You brought up something that is true. I have dogs too, and people will tell a dog owner where they can be and where they shouldn't be, and et cetera. And most dog owners will say, I'm sorry, you're right. But we've all seen where somebody makes a very polite suggestion to a smoker, and it's oftentimes a different interaction. That's a concern I have. Even though it's not a law, I would assume that our law enforcement would get calls from time to time. So I just don't want to be a nanny state. Maybe the right choice, the wrong choice. I've spoken enough on it. I support your organization. I see where you're coming from, but I'm against it.
I think, Al, did you have something?
Yes, I did. I have a question. Occasionally in Unity Park, we'll have a Great Dakota Gathering. And part of the Native American tradition is the use of tobacco. And, where does this proposal fit into a ceremony like that?
That is an interesting question, and I don't know for sure, but I believe that other parks have had exceptions for things such as that.
Okay.
But I would have to go into a little more research.
Yeah, I guess I'm joining with the other people around the circle here that, I'm not a smoker, never have been. I remember being in the Army and picking up butts on Fort Lewis property back out in Washington State, and I know that's no fun to do, and I understand the litter issue. And I think, the intent is good, but I would rather have this develop, and I think what we're asking from this motion to direct staff to come back with something in the next meeting that we can deal with. So my suggestion to staff in that direction would be to develop a policy to encourage, not to prohibit, but to encourage the non-usage of tobacco products. Doesn't outright ban it, and again, I'm concerned about enforcement too. I mean, we have no swimming signs at the river at Levy Park. Signs are there, they should be enforced. If they're not enforced, the city has a certain amount of liability. If we prohibit this product usage in our park, then we, I think, as a community, have an obligation to enforce it. Enforcement means perhaps extra people doing that. I'm not all comfortable with that, but I am comfortable with a program to discourage the use of this product in our park system rather than outright prohibition.
Michelle?
Chad, I just have a question about something you said. Aren't our facilities already smoke-free? I mean, you mentioned the East Rec Center. We don't allow smoking there, do we? I mean, that's where children play. I mean, it's a property that, people don't smoke in there. This City Hall is smoke-free, right?
Mayor and council, all of our public facilities, meaning City Hall, East Rec, Public Facilities Aquatic Center are all tobacco-free.
So we're already kind of doing it. They're just signs aren't posted.
Correct. Well, there's signage here, and there's signage at like the Friendship Center and East Rec, there's signage on the door that says, no smoking.
But you technically could smoke on the property at the east, outside the
Outside.
building at East End Rec. Is that correct?
Most of them, we just internally have a policy that's 150 feet away from the facility, I think it is, if I remember correctly.
Well, I would certainly be
So-
in favor of
Yeah.
the facilities themselves having a policy.
And then several years back, the Tobacco Free in the Parks Initiative, through the Minnesota Park and Rec Association, through our southern group, also did an initiative to prohibit tobacco use at youth events that we're a part of. And so we did not develop a policy that prohibits the use of tobacco, similar to what Mr. Thurley is saying, is all of our use schedules all say that tobacco use is discouraged at all of our youth events. So similar in that nature.
Paul?
I was gonna save it until it got introduced, but I'll read it anyway. Well, the intent is simply to direct staff to develop a policy to prohibit the use of tobacco in city parks and open space. It also calls for banning the use of all tobacco products in our city parks and on our trails. That concern to me as a non-smoker and a guy who quit 33 years ago, and the desire for some to further create a nanny state to protect us from bad behavior in ourselves. The city of Winona is a park city with 20 to 25% of our total land area in dedicated parks, totaling 36 listed in our comprehensive plan. I do not want anyone to be restricted from sitting in their boat in the middle of Lake Winona, minding their own business in the company of friends from the ability to smoke. I do not want anyone who has just made a hole-in-one at Westfield Golf Course the inability to light up a cigar to celebrate. I do not want to be camping on Prairie Island Park Campground around a bonfire, enjoying a brew with friends or family from lighting up. Nor do I want to be putting my boat in the water at one of our boat ramps and have one more thing in my list of rules that mess up my supposedly enjoyable day in the outdoors. Nor do I want city staff having to confront tourists to our city with a policy which invites hostile confrontation with a guest, which may cause a physical response, and particularly if those confronted are drinking. If we pass this, I hope staff to review all these conditions and to address them before it returns to council.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Pam?
I despise being in our city parks and finding cigarette butts around. You know, I myself haven't had too much trouble with people smoking in the parks or in any other place outside here in Winona. But to find cigarette butts around the playgrounds or around the picnic benches or in the shelters, that's really not good. So I would support this just for that.
Okay. Anybody else? All right,
May I have one final thing?
sure.
This is in reference to the item 5.7 on the agenda about the active places. And I just wanted to point this out now because one of the requirements in order to apply for the active places grant is that we either have in place or are looking to implement a tobacco-free policy. So that's just one other condition.
All right, thank you very much. Is there a motion?
I would move to direct staff to develop a policy with prohibiting tobacco in city parks.
All right, motion by Pam, is there a second? I guess not, motion dies for lack of a second. Oh, well,
Yeah, could I make a motion then?
you can make another one, sure.
If I could, that we direct staff to develop a policy to encourage or discourage the use of tobacco products in city parks and open spaces. Again, taking into account the Native American usage in Unity Park during ceremonies such as the Dakota Gathering.
I'd second that.
Okay. We have a motion by Al and a second by Michelle. Forgotten where you were.
I wasn't gone that long.
You were gone a long time. George?
So in other words, you're just asking them to document something to encourage, to discourage.
To discourage the use of tobacco
Right,
products in
okay,
our city
encourage
parks.
to discourage it, okay.
Yeah,
But there would be no restrictions on just,
that would be up to the individual,
okay, so,
but the city, you know, I mean, I'm certain, you know, people would hopefully want to point that policy out if, again, it gets back to us and we pass that policy.
just a notice, we just encourage you not to smoke.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Chad, you wanna speak?
Mayor and council, I would assume that Livewell would appreciate that motion. My only comment to that is the Park Rec could do that through just their advocacy efforts. I'm not sure that we need to develop, and/or I'm not sure how we develop a policy to discourage something that we're not going to ultimately prohibit. And so certainly the Park Rec could do that in all of their advocacy efforts and simply say that we discourage the use of tobacco in our parks. The only drawback to that would be if these, as Janica alluded to, these future grant opportunities, if it's required that you prohibit that use. That's my only caveat to that. And so I think that having a policy in place or a drafting the policy discouraging the use still would not meet the qualifier for a grant, just as a side note.
Right, I understand that.
Well, my only response would be that, you know, we can put up signs to say anything. And, you know, the city of Winona officially discourages the use of tobacco products in all our parks. I don't know how clear that is or not. I don't know why we have to do a specific prohibition. Why not give it a try and see what happens? Or I would encourage people to let council members know, given this debate and the reporting that will, I'm sure, follow, where, you know, those folks stand. I would encourage people to contact us about it.
I would particularly think that, you know, if we have signage, the best place for it would be in the playground areas and
Yeah,
maybe the kids' softball fields, that sort of thing, but, I don't know how widespread signage would be necessary, but, if we had it.
and I understand the rule about signage, you know, once it's up, it'll be recognized for a while, and then it'll be part of the background.
Yeah, you won't even see it. All right, other comments about the motion?
I could understand something if it was addressing a seating area at a ballpark where people are in reasonably close proximity to each other. But I'm just afraid to open that door to say that if I'm out in the middle of the lake in my boat, that one of our staff people has to hurry out into the middle of the lake to pursue somebody who's violating it. And I just can't see it. I think it's a waste of time at that point.
Okay.
Mayor and council, sorry. Just wanted to clarify one maybe minor major point. The jurisdiction of the lake, I think, is actually held with the county. And so, again, or the state when you get your license for the boat. It's within Lake Park. I guess we, at that point, may be splitting hairs because it is within Lake Park. But really the jurisdiction, if you're talking enforcement, my assumption would rest on the county or the state, just to clarify that.
Would the sign be on the green or be in front of the green?
We would have a floaty one out in the middle of the lake.
Or at the sand trap or?
Other comments? We have a motion. You wanna just repeat your motion, or Monica, just make sure we're clear on this?
The motion is to develop a policy to discourage the use of tobacco products in city parks, taking into consideration the Native American gatherings.
That's good.
George?
Chad, are you saying that your department could come up with something without any direction from the council? Without this motion going forward?
Mayor and council, my reaction to that is yes, that our department would encourage through our materials on our website, et cetera, without a policy that just says we discourage the use of tobacco in all of our parks, and leave it at that. again, I think that the comment from, or the petition from Livewell was again more of the prohibit the use of tobacco. And if that's not the council's desire, then I think I think we've heard what you have said about that. I think that the Park Rec could do that on their own through their advocacy efforts.
Michelle, I think you had your hand up.
I was gonna say that really probably the issue is when you're at events like at Bandshell and there's a concert, or you're at a ball game, or you're at a playground, is really when the smoking would become an issue, because that's when you're in a space that's, and I'm guessing if you discourage the use of tobacco already, you're discouraging it at those events, correct?
Okay, Al?
Well, just a comment too about internal staff, I think, when we talk about the motion coming up for the grant, I think that might require a formal action by this body rather than a reference to staff internally doing something. So that's why, again, and I really haven't heard or have I read about this, whether that would be something that would disqualify us for applying for that grant.
With the motion, Chad, do you think that would allow us to apply for a grant if this motion passed?
Mayor and council, repeat that one more time, sorry.
Do you think if the council passed this motion, that would give us the necessary means to apply for one of those grants in 5.7?
No, I think if the motion that's on the floor, if it's passed, that would not assist us in the grant application for active places. Qualifier in the grant application is the creation of a tobacco-free environment for all property, indoor and outdoor, which is owned by your organization, meaning the city. And again, in the grant application, we have to answer if that policy is in place or if that policy is being developed. So I guess that's a long answer to disqualifies us, I believe, for the grant.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I disagree with staff. The letter from Livewell on that article says that a requirement of the grant is to have a no tobacco policy in place. To me, that means either prohibition or discouragement of tobacco usage. But again, I'm not the one writing the grant or anything like that. And I have some questions as we get to this article too about the grant process anyway, so that's my comment.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we will vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, motion passes. 5-2.
And on to item 3.4 is appointment to the Fine Arts Commission of Mary Farrell.
Move to approve that appointment?
Second.
Motion by Al, I heard Michelle, so any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Item 3.5 is an appointment to the Cable Television Commission of Toby Thompson.
I move to approve the appointment.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, second by Al, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Item 3.6 is the sign and banner schedule for the first half of 2015.
Move to approve the list.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, seconded by George, any discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
Michelle?
Monica, have you heard any comments about the new sign and locations, or the new banner setup requirements, the special type of sign, right, the vinyl?
Do you have any comments you want to add to it? We haven't had any changes in the signs themselves, so groups were able to reuse signs from last year. And I don't think we've heard any concerns from the staff that are installing the signs.
Great.
I've heard comments, people do like the new locations, and the signposts themselves are more decorative. And I would note that staff is continuing to look at developing a fee schedule. We just got a little behind in getting this to you, and we need to get the schedule out, because you can see the signs start going up next week.
Thank you.
I did have somebody come up to me after a meeting last week and thank me for taking the signs down in Wyndham Park, so there's one comment. Any other, comments? Okay, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Item 3.7 is a request for utility fee reduction for the property at 413 East 4th Street. And is Joyce Boyle here?
Are you Joyce Boyle? Okay. Come to the podium, state your name and address.
This is in regard to a water bill. My name is Joyce Boyle, and I live down here on East Fourth Street in a two-story, three-generation, 100-year-old house. I'm in the Social Security group. I'm 81, my husband's 85, and we sure didn't expect this problem. On January 16th, two men from the water department showed up at our home, and they said there was a spike in our water usage, and we were going to have a bill of $729.89. I think this is very excessive. What really concerned me was when they read the meter on the 7th, I think they were supposed to put this on my door. I never received anything like it, and it does say on there that your water consumption is out of range for your normal usage. I never even had a knock on the door, saying that there was something wrong. For 9 days, that means that this water ran on. Nobody got in contact with us, and that's gonna be on our next bill. He told me to call the water department. I called them, they couldn't do anything. I did call my council person, and that is Pamela Eden, and I thank you very much. She tried to help me. My last bill was $66.95, so you can see that our water usage wasn't anything exceptional. I understand accidents happen. I do think that this bill is excessive, and I'm open to compromise.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Joyce? George?
What concerns me is, if you have these printed out, why aren't they put on the doors? He said to me, they came 9 days later and handed this to me. And I could have avoided at least 9 more days of this, but I'm sure it'll show up on my next bill.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Keith, do you want to address this?
Sure. Mayor and Council, she's correct on the dates, and in your agenda item, I have a description as well, but there's perhaps, this board doesn't understand the process of when they're reading it, they don't have all of the data of the old history that's going on. They take all the readings back to the finance department that creates another list of meters that have improper readings or need to go back out and do that. And then when all that list goes back to the water department, back to the finance department, they then create another list for the water department of the high bills. And at that point, they go out to the property owners and either knock on the door or leave their orange card. And in this case, the water department got that high list on the 13th and the 14th, which is only a couple days before they came to your door. And they go through a whole list of them. They may get 40 or 50 of them, of high bills. It's a service that we provide that is certainly not required. It's a good service. It helps out considerably, rather than having you find it out when the bill comes a couple weeks later or something along that line. But I feel like the water department was prompt in their service in what they did. Then they go inside and found the leak that was occurring. It was a leaky toilet.
Okay. Question, George?
Yeah, no, from what I understand in reading this as I get it, is that the toilet was flushed and then it never shut off. As from when I was reading, and of course that does generate several gallons of water. Is that was the major problem with it?
It was a leaky toilet, and then the guys turned off the valve and told property owners to get a plumber.
And then you did have it fixed immediately, from what I understand reading here, correct?
As soon as we knew about it, we had it
Yeah,
fixed.
okay, so.
Okay. Pam?
Yes, I understand, Joyce, that you and your husband have lived in this house for a long time. And did you tell me that you were born in this house?
I was born in there.
Okay, you've lived there a long
I'm
time?
81.
Okay, and so do you rent the property, or do you have roomers there?
It's just him and I and the cat.
And so what's going on upstairs? Why didn't you
Well,
notice that toilet?
we don't go upstairs or in the basement, you know. We basically live on the first floor. We had no idea this was happening. So, until they knocked on the door and told us,
Well,
we had no idea.
yeah, I know those toilets can just, you'd never have any idea that they could leak that much water in a few weeks' time. I've had that experience. A lot of people have had that experience. Thank you.
George?
I guess just to move things along here, you know, she did definitely have a problem with the toilet. She did get it rectified immediately after she knew of it, and I would move that we reduce her utility bill by $200.
Okay, we have a motion by George.
I'll second it.
And a second by Paul. Discussion?
Again, this is one of those instances where even if we had monthly billing, this probably wouldn't have caught it because it was, over a short period of time, unfortunately. But I think, George, we've kind of looked at these bills. We haven't set a policy on them because we've dealt with each instance individually. But I think the rationale behind our billing adjustment has been to look at, well, we knew the water was used, but because it was clean water, when it went through the sanitary sewer system, it really didn't require treatment other than increasing the volume by however many hundreds of gallons. And so I think what we've been doing is we've kind of looked at the sanitary sewer fee, and we've adjusted that with the normal sanitary fee less the excessive fee, and by my calculations, my rough calculations, it would be about $300. So I would therefore, using that rationale, make an amendment to the motion to reduce the billing by $300 instead of $200.
We have a motion. Was there a second to your? Yeah. There was, okay.
All day, yeah, and I wish to amend that to increase it to $300.
I would second that.
All right, there's a motion and a second on the amendment. Any discussion on that? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So it's 4-3, carries. And I just want to state, I'm opposed to this. We have a service here in Winona that I don't think other communities have, and I feel sorry for you, but it just seems like anybody that's unhappy with their utility bill can come before the council and ask it to be reduced, and
That sounds a lot better than $750.
Okay, well, we still have to vote on the main motion here, so, right? So it's not over yet. So,
Now, what's the main motion?
well, this is 300.
As a
That was the amendment.
Okay,
The
so,
amendment was the 300. So now we'll vote on the motion for $300 reduction. And so, all those, any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. 4-3, motion carries.
And on to new business. Item 5.1, Councilman Double would like to present the proposed rail resolution.
Yes, I was in attendance, as was the mayor and George, last week.
Pam was there in the audience.
Okay. For a meeting that we heard, the second report on the rail going through Winona and the issues. And one of the things that concerned me at that meeting was there was a lot of discussion with regard to expansion of the rail service, high-speed rail, and other things. And yet they, at their meeting, clearly highlighted the safety issues that exist on the current trackage and the fact that it's an increasing problem in terms of volume. And so I thought that it was important, and they said it at the meeting, that they needed to have input to try to address these coming problems, and that's why I drafted it. It addresses the safety issue and says that before the state or the federal government looks at increased funding for new trackage, high-speed rail and other things, that let's fix the safety issues first. Because one of the things that they clearly impacted was that if there was the potential of one of these past disasters, it would affect an area roughly a half a mile on either side of the track. And when you think of that in terms of Winona, it would be catastrophic. And particularly if you look at the fact that, and this should concern the state, that trackage goes through a campus of a state university, and there are not only student housing with dorms, but also several apartment units and single-family units that these trains go through. So that's the purpose, is to say, basically to the state and the federal government, let's deal with the safety issues that you identified, that you brought to the meeting, fix those first, and then beyond that, that's a different day. So that's what the resolution does.
Okay, so is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by George, discussion. Al?
So you're talking in our resolution, I would ask for maybe a clarification of the now therefore paragraph at the last sentence, where it says, actually it's all one sentence, but the last two sentences where it says, starting with safety, high-risk rail crossings with grade separations before funding of any other rail new initiatives. I assume you mean new rail initiatives.
Correct.
Okay, minor typo there. But then you're asking that we address, or that we encourage the federal regulations to develop grade separations at all 8 of those.
They mentioned this in their issue of
Okay.
the safety discussion.
Okay.
They specifically identified that these were their recommendations.
Okay. Just wondered where that came from.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
for the
from there.
clarification. Okay. I support the resolution then.
Michelle?
So you would even be against them improving Hoffman Yards, which would increase the availability of trains to move through there swiftly and effectively? You would not be in favor of supporting high-speed rail where they're gonna use the funding to improve the at-grade?
No, I would be in favor of high-speed rail after the safety issues are dealt with.
But what I'm saying is the high-speed rail would use the current rail line, but part of the funding would be to improve the railway costings to make it allowed to be high-speed rail. So because this to me seems contradictory then.
If
Because
that-
they wouldn't change the rails, they would improve all of the crossings, upgrade as they go. That's part of the funding package.
If that was the
I can't remember, it was 9 or 15. There was, I believe, 15 specific things that they identified as safety issues.
Sure.
And I'm saying, whatever they want to do beyond that, that's fine. But right now, you have identified 15 liabilities that you're aware of, that are high on your priority list. And I would just hate to see them fund other issues or expansion and not deal with the safety issues first. Because the safety issues are gonna be a whole lot less money to deal with than the other items.
I guess my point though is often when they go in to make an improvement or to increase the capacity, they correct all of the issues as part of it. Like when we get the new bridge, we're not just getting the new bridge, they're gonna, correct some of the traffic issues down at the other end of it. So as part of that high-speed rail initiative is to correct those issues of safety. But it's part of the funding package. So if you're saying we should be non-supportive of that initiative
I'm not saying that.
so that we can support this, I couldn't be in favor of that because I'm on the high-speed rail commission. But that's how it kind of reads to me because that is a new initiative. It is a new funding source that we're asking the federal government and state to fund. It's not like the track from Rochester, which is entirely new and not built. This is an existing track, but it is a new initiative that does not have funding yet. So that would make this not, I couldn't vote for this.
There were people at that meeting that wanted to support even new trackage to go from Rochester to Wabasha. New routes.
Sure.
New acquisition of land. And I'm just thinking that before they get into those detours, you've identified specifically these liabilities. And I would hate to see us have a catastrophic in Winona, knowing that they publicly identified these safety areas.
I wish I could see that list so I could have a better understanding of what you're talking about, the 15 recommendations that they have, because they're not listed here. So it's hard for me to be supportive of that without seeing them, because I agree that there are some issues, even outside of the city of Winona, that make it a little bit difficult to cross at some of these crossings, but it's hard for me to support it when I haven't seen it when I'm on this commission.
I'm sure we have a copy
We
of
have
the
a copy of
report.
the report.
And the other council people who were at that meeting, I think, heard the same issues. And so this was read from their report.
I support this motion. I think it's a good resolution. I guess I didn't quite read the high-speed rail as a problem in this that you're seeing. I think that.
No, it's not a problem. I'm asking about it's a new initiative. It's a new funding source from the state and federal government. And the way I read this right here says that you would suggest not supporting funding of that until all of these issues are addressed in the state of Minnesota. Well, my point is that funding would improve those lines along that route. And by not allowing that to happen, you're already saying, no, we can't do that because every railroad crossing in the state of Minnesota hasn't been improved. So that's my problem with it, because I think, although I don't know when that funding would ever come from the federal government for the high-speed rail, it reads to me like we wouldn't be able to do that, or what we're saying is we want you to fix the state before we can implement this new high-speed rail. That's how this read to me. And that's what it sounded like when Paul was
I guess
like
it's Paul's
describing.
motion, but, or resolution, but I read it as, let's fix these critical things that you've identified that need to be fixed before we do any other major new projects, but.
What would a new project be? Would it be improving
Well,
the
light
yards?
rail from Rochester to the Twin Cities would be a totally new project.
So you're talking about the building, they were talking about the building of new rail lines. It didn't talk about improving the current rail system. Like the High-Speed Rail Commission actually asked them to improve the Hoffman yards as part of their funding because of the slowdown there and the train hookups and the mess. And so, again, my concern is that we're saying don't do that. Is that, your understanding is that was not what this is?
And it appeared that the link between Rochester and the cities was almost pre-approved.
Yeah.
George?
Yeah, if I remember from that meeting Monday night, I believe they asked for the city's support to go out and, make this more of a solid case for it. The 15 locations that they were talking about, those all weren't in town here.
Oh, it's only one.
Yeah, we
That
were
was
listed.
Louisa Street.
Right, yeah, we were listed as one. We were in the top 15. I know they talked grade separation, they talked Mankato Avenue, they talked improvement of the tracks and things. And is it gonna take anything away? As you read it, definitely so, but, they can work on this, they can work on their high-speed rail, they can maybe tie all of it together. But I think, they asked for our support that night here. If something you can come up to, push to the legislature, push to MnDOT to get something done on it. So I would be in support of it.
And you're right, they said if any of these projects are gonna get done, it's gonna take the cities pushing,
Right.
pushing to get it done, so. Anyway, other comments? Concerns? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 5.2 is an agreement with the Winona Area Humane Society for Animal Control Services.
I would move to approve the attached agreement and to authorize administration to sign it with the Humane Society.
I will second that.
Motion by George, seconded by Jerry, any discussion? Al?
Just a comment, as I was reading the agreement, you look at things like a TNR fee. And it's on page 3 and it's on page 4 and I was kind of wondering what a TNR fee is. So I looked it up, it's a trap, neuter, and return. And I went, okay, I learned something. So I definitely am supportive of this agreement and thank the Humane Society for their service and wish them continued success.
Other comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Item 5.3 is the City of Goodview Sanitary Sewer Agreement.
Move to
would move-
approve. Go ahead, George.
I would move to approve the attached resolution.
I'll second that.
Motion by George, seconded by Al. Discussion? George?
Keith, you have anything you want to add on this, or?
Mayor and Council, maybe it's all on your agenda, but maybe for the public, that this is an agreement which has been in place in the past. The major changes are that, first of all, the pretreatment program that we have in the city of Winona will now be in the city of Goodview as well. Then also that right now, the city of Goodview pays, individuals pay 78% of the average of our sewer rates. This will gradually increase it up to 90%. And the third part is the city of Winona residents pay an access fee, whereas those in Goodview do not. This will incorporate that as well. So their rates will be increasing through this, but it'll be a very gradual increase.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Item 5.4 is the Windcraft Expansion Project Development Agreement.
I'd move to approve the attached resolution.
Second.
Motion by Al, seconded by Michelle. I know Mr. Killen is here. Would you like to say a few words? We have two items regarding Windcraft. So.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm John Killen, president of Windcraft. We appreciate your support last week, and we ask for your further support of this development agreement, which will help offset our soil remediation costs, which are more expensive than we anticipated. So if this is approved, we're finalizing plans right now on a 122,000 square foot manufacturing and distribution center, where we'll employ over 150 Winona people, and also on the related job creation fund, developing 10 new jobs at this facility over the next 3 years, and then on a related project that will be coming forward, 46 new jobs in the state of Winona, or in the city of Winona, 21 new to the state of Minnesota in the coming weeks. So we would appreciate your support, and we would answer any questions you may have about our project.
A little busy today?
I was in Phoenix this morning. I brought a championship towel. The New England Patriots. So, yeah, we're busy.
Yeah, good company. Any comments or questions for Mr. Killen? All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you for doing this. Any further comments? Hearing none, I guess. We'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Can I leave
Yes.
a towel with you?
You can leave it here. I'm not sure. We'll find a place to use it, I guess.
The next item is, item 5.5 is the Windcraft Expansion Project, State of Minnesota Job Creation Fund.
I don't know, he didn't bring enough towels.
What about the Seahawk fans?
That was painful, George.
Are there any left?
I would move to approve the attached resolution.
Second.
Motion by George, seconded by Paul. Discussion? Do you have any comments about this? You said everything? Okay. If there isn't any more discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Item 5.6 is the 2015 Minnesota City Participation Program.
I'd move to approve the attached resolution.
Motion by Michelle.
Second.
Seconded by George. Discussion?
Um,
Al?
I see that Lucy is here. If she could just answer a quick question on this program. Well, actually, a couple of them. This is a continuing program that the state is offering for first-time home buyers?
Yes, Mayor and members of council, the MCPP program has been in place for a number of years, and we've been able to tap into it through the Southeast Minnesota Multi-County HRA. What's different is we've been encouraged by Minnesota Housing that due to the size of our city, we could have our own separate allocation, and that would possibly be more beneficial for our financial institutions to tap into.
Good idea.
Good. And these rates are usually like 1% under the going rate, or?
Correct. In addition, they often come with down payment assistance, which otherwise wouldn't be available to the homeowner.
I bought my first house with one of these programs, and 12.5%, I guess, or 13% interest.
Back in the day.
That day, yes.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Has
That
there
was
been,
good then.
are there any statistics on the, the difference between people who take this program and the normal rate of foreclosures in the mortgage business?
I don't have those statistics off the top of my head, but I could certainly research them. Typically, though, I would say if you're getting a Minnesota Housing mortgage product, you have to go through a class, and that class teaches you about budgeting and being able to save money to make repairs to your home. So I think that class that's required is very helpful to a new homeowner.
Mm-hmm. And what's the cost to the city for this program?
Nothing, a little bit of time in materials and marketing the program.
Okay, good. Good program, thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item 5.7 is the Active Places Grant Application.
Chad?
Mayor and council, to start with, just want to clarify that the previous decision won't preclude us from writing the grant. We will still move forward with writing the grant. It's clear that we'll be deducted points for not having the tobacco-free policy, but it will not preclude us from writing this grant. So I just want to start with that.
Okay.
I would approve the following resolution then.
And I'd second.
Okay, motion by George and seconded by Michelle. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have some questions. Assuming, we do go forward with this, I noticed there's this gap between the date of the letter, September 15th of 2014, and then now we're looking at it in February, and there's a grant deadline of Friday, February 12th. I guess, perhaps if maybe we should have gotten this a little earlier, I don't know. Also, these kiosks, who approves the design of them, who maintains them, and if they're damaged, who replaces them.
Mayor and the council, again, if the grant is approved and the signs or kiosks are placed, once that installation happens, they're our responsibility.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 5.8 is the temporary work area easement for the East End Boat Harbor for the Army Corps of Engineers.
I would approve the attached resolution.
Second.
Motion by George, seconded by Michelle. Any discussion? Al?
Now, I'll defer to George. He
Oh.
made the motion.
Keith, I was gonna call you today, I didn't have an opportunity. Now when they, they're gonna be just unloading their sand there again and hauling it, correct? Okay, now just two things come up now. First of all, it was talked about, we spoke, I think, last summer about some dredging work in the East End Boat Harbor. I don't know if it was the entrance or inside the harbor. Can any of that somehow have them or whoever, do that work in the East End Boat Harbor? Because it's gonna need some dredging, and it would be silly to have them, do their project, and we come back, in July, and then, we're doing the same thing. Is there any way that you can work with them or get a communication with them or someone to have that project go on as well, too?
We did talk with them last year and asked them, and at that point they said no, but I would be glad to ask again. We have the same discussion at Dick's as well, the municipal marina.
Okay.
An entrance. I don't think it's an absolute no, but typically they say they don't have the funding for it or the time for it, something along that line. But we'll have the discussion again.
Okay, and then also, a question keeps coming up. Any damage or anything done to the boat launch or to the roadway, who would be responsible to repair that?
We do the cleaning up in that area. Any damage would be theirs.
Okay, now you will keep an eye on that, okay.
Al?
Question, Keith? Do you have any idea when this would start, and how does the public know that, the harbor area, the access would be closed?
Last year and this year as well, it's dependent on the elevation of the river. When the
Okay.
river gets low enough, they can
Yeah.
use. And I believe last year we put a notice in the paper. We do the same thing.
Okay.
Other questions? Not, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Item 5.9 is the Healthy Balance Program with Winona Health.
I would motion to direct the mayor and city clerk to sign the attached contract.
Second.
Motion by George, seconded by Michelle. Discussion. Al?
I guess this is a good program. I'm willing to give it a try. I think anything we can do to keep our city staff healthy will be beneficial in the long term. I just am concerned about the receiving a report on how effective it is. I see that's included in the agreement. And it has one of those phrases that I'm not always comfortable with in dealing with other entities and agreements, and that is the automatic renewal if not negatively noticed. And with this one, it's an automatic renewal unless either party provides 120 days written notice. So to me, I'm sure city staff will keep track of that should there be any issues, but again, I'm just making note of that at this time. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Item 7.1 is council concerns.
We'll start with Al.
Nothing tonight.
Jerry?
Nothing this evening.
Michelle?
Nothing.
Paul?
I just would like to remind everyone that next Monday night at 6:30, I'm going to host, and I invite any of the others on the council to join me, to talk about creating and bringing new families to Winona. Every family that moves to Winona that has one child in K-12 brings with it $11,000 in state aid money. So we want to encourage new families. There's a severe shortage of not only the workforce is extremely tight, we have a very low unemployment rate, but in addition to that, we don't want to be in a situation where our service organizations don't have volunteers, our churches are having to deal with an aging population not replenished, and also the fact that those volunteers do wonderful things around town.
Okay, thank you. Pam?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
George?
Welcome back, Michelle, and look forward to working with you again and hope things are going well for you. So, I just heard on Sarah's radio today, I don't have no facts on this, but this Monday after the Super Bowl is the least productive day in any workplace. So, and I hope your team won, your number one, whatever. Have a good Valentine's Day and have a good week.
Especially in the Northwest.
Yes,
Besides, the groundhog saw a shadow, so
yeah. A lot of things
we're in for 6
happening.
more
Okay,
weeks.
thank you.
And under the consent agenda, there are 6 items. The approval of the minutes from January 20th, the final adoption of an ordinance to vacate a public drainage easement in Technology Park, an ordinance to vacate a street easement in the BK subdivision by Penny's, an ordinance to establish handicap parking on Howard Street, an ordinance to authorize the issuance of bonds, and a claim against the city by Maxine Fawcett.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Al, seconded by Michelle. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.